What's up everyone, I'm DJ here and this is a nice day to talk about unit tests. This is a nice approach, this is important stuff in development world and something that I really love to talk about and actually love to, really code it. It's funny, but I'd like to show you some example about unit tests just to introduce us in this nice word from unit test. So I will use Jest. Jest is the famous framework, JS frameworks to use unit to create unit test. It was built for Facebook team, so it's really famous and it's really nice to know. I really like of. To be honest, I don't even use it in another JS unit test framework, but this is really good, so you can use this one. Is really awesome. But let's focus on the code base, as I said, because this is the first video and I'd like to show the power of the unit test. So I'd like to show you some example. In this example here, I'd like to show you a function to format date. And everyone know how it's hard to work with date principle and the JS word. So here I would like to use a library, this library day.js, but I have created a function to use the day.js tools. This is good because I can validate if day.js is returning what I'd like to receive, or if I'd like to return a default value, for example. So let's focus here on the function and then I'll show you the test itself. So we have this function here, format date, and this function are receiving two params, or can receive two params. The first one is the date itself, so the value that I'd like to format this date comes from for some database, for example, and have this kind of timestamp, right? And also we have the format. The JS function needs to receive a format that I would like to receive this date. For example, if you're from Brazil, the date is day, month, year. So it's just an example. So here we are passing not just the date itself, but also the format that I would like to receive this formatted data. I'm passing this value for this const here, just to be easier to understand the example. And here we have a const with an invalidate string. This invalidate string is returned from day.js when I pass some invalidate from here to here. So here at the bottom I will validate if the data is valid once it's different of invalidate. Once it's different, I will return the format data, so I'm sure that the data that I'm receiving is right, so it's formatted. If this return value is invalidate, I will return an empty string. So if someone is using this function and passing invalidate, I will return an empty string, and then we want to show this kind of string, for example, at the front end. Sounds good. So let's go to the inspec file. So for now we can ignore this comment here and this one here. Let's focus on the first of all the beginning of this file. Once I have just in our project, we can create files with this suffix here, and then just will understand that inside this file we will create some tests. And here we are importing the function that we have created in this file, and also we are importing some data from this mock file. This is a good practice of unit test word, when you create some functions separated in the file and use this function as mock to create our scenarios. So let's imagine here, for example, that we are passing this. We are creating this function here, and we are passing a fake data. So this data is invalid data, right? So fake data is not a valid data, of course. And then I'm passing the format that I would like to receive this data. Once I pass it, I would like to receive an empty string because this is the scenario. Once someone passing an invalid data, I would like to receive an empty data. If you see here on the right, our testing is passing, so it's great. If someone passing invalid data from the function, then I will return this guy here because this guy here will be true, will be false, sorry, and then I will return this guy here. But let's imagine this situation now when I pass the undefined instead of fake data. Now we can see that I received something strange here, because Jest is showing for us what is wrong in our test, and Jest is telling me that we are receiving, once you call this function here, passing these params, we are receiving this string with this kind of data. But it's strange because this data is come from well, because I'm saying that I would like to receive an empty string. This is a current date, so now it's this date, and just in DJS, actually, when we receive something, when DJS receive undefined here, DJS returns for us the current date, but it's not what we'd like to receive because it's wrong for us. So once we have data as undefined value, we need first of all validate this function to make sure that we will select the data. So we can, for example, create a validate here and only call this function if we have the date. Now we are receiving undefined because format date now has an undefined value, or as date is also defined. So we can also, for example, create a new validation here and make sure that we have this value, and now our test is passing. So can you feel, as I would like to receive something and I didn't pay attention at the beginning about this function, and now with Jest, with the unit test, I'm sure that my function will return this kind of value in this specific scenario. So let's uncomment here and now passing new, and our test is keep passing. And now let's uncomment this guy here and this guy. Now we're passing validate data from our database, validate dates from our database, and then passing some format from this function. And I would like to receive a format data, this data here, when you can see from the string. And our test is passing, so it's good. I'm passing format data, format date, and I'm receiving format data. Sorry. I can also pass in another example here, and it keeps passing. And let's imagine, for example, that I would like to pass in a default value once I don't receive a format here. So if you see here, I have the format data, but I'm not passing the second param. So once I have this kind of scenario, I'd like to pass in a default value, a default format to our function. And this default value will be something like month, year. So let's go back in the function and, for example, do something like that, right? So here I'm passing a default value for this function. Once I save it, our testing is passing. This is amazing. So now I'm sure that I have formatted my function, anything else has broken, and now I have new validation from this function. So guys, this is just a taste, just a simple example, but it could be a real example in a Word because everybody knows about the date format. But can you get the power of the unit test? We can change our function and make sure that once we change it, we won't break we won't break what we have created, and you can also add in a new validation. And this is really nice because you can validate this function before you deploy it, and you can avoid to get a lot of fails and once you have deployed it. So for example, this kind of validation here, when I pass the undefined reset the current date, this is something that probably we won't get on in production, so it's really sad. But that's it, guys. I really hope that you have liked this video, and this is the first one, and then next probably ones I would like to give you more complex examples. But that's it for today's, and see ya.